Minister Ojar, honorable ministers, excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Bonjour, Gelakasla, good afternoon, salam alaikum. I would like to thank Morocco for hosting this inaugural Marrakesh International Justice Conference. I appreciate the opportunity to address you, to highlight Canada's approach to judicial independence, diversity on the bench, and how to encourage adherence to the rule of law. I look forward to continuing to hear from my distinguished ministerial colleagues and from other experts in order to benefit from your best practices and approaches. Canada is a nation that endeavors to play an active role in maintaining and strengthening a strong, safe, and vibrant global community. We believe in working together with our international partners to promote fair, accessible, and just legal systems. All of us need to work together, which is not always easy to do given our different priorities. But it is certainly rewarding and worthwhile, and Canada is here to contribute and play a meaningful role in these discussions. I would like to focus my remarks today on three overarching themes: judicial independence, judicial diversity, and the importance of adhering to the rule of law. Preserving the independence and efficacy of the judiciary is critical for the protection of individual rights and liberties. Judicial independence is an evolving concept. Institutions must endeavor to keep pace with the continuous need for reforms and modernization. In Canada, judicial independence is woven into many of our constitutional provisions, such as those dealing with appointment, tenure, and payment of judges, and the guarantee of independent courts and tribunals. From early in Canada's history, courts have recognized the centrality of judicial independence in our constitutional system and have continued to refine our understanding of what this means in practice. There is no handbook that lays out exactly what judicial independence will look like within various communities. While its core elements are well understood and universally shared, in practice it can differ among varying nations and legal traditions. Above all, judicial independence is critical to foster public confidence in the administration of justice. Our citizens must trust that the judiciary will treat them fairly and impartially according to the law. As Federal Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of Canada, I am sometimes asked if my dual role contributes to any conflicts in Canada's pursuit of judicial independence. I am pleased to say that in the Canadian context, it works well in practice. I personally find little in the way of conflict between my policy role and supervisory responsibilities as minister and my operational and advisory responsibilities as Attorney General. I believe that the cross-pollination that this system leads to improves my own ability, as well as my department's and the government's ability to effectively carry out each function. And in this capacity, I'm committed to making judicial institutions stronger for the benefit of all Canadians. To this end, when our government assumed office in the fall of 2015, we made significant changes to improve the efficacy and integrity of our independent judicial system while building upon its strengths. I introduced significant changes to the judicial appointment process with the goal of further strengthening its independence, openness, and transparency. These reforms have also resulted in greater diversity on the bench. In Canada, jurists interested in being appointed to the federal judiciary must submit a detailed application laying out their contributions to the administration of justice over the course of their careers. Each candidate is first evaluated by one of our judicial advisory committees, independent volunteer committees composed of judges, lawyers, and community members. We have also made transformative changes to the appointment process for justices of the Supreme Court of Canada. Under the new process, an independent and nonpartisan advisory board advises or identifies suitable candidates who are jurists of the highest caliber, functionally bilingual, and represent Canada's rich diversity. At the heart of our efforts to further strengthen Canada's judicial system lies in the commitment to our diversity. I have touched on this, and we have made inroads in achieving this goal with the reforms that we have made to our judicial appointment process. Canada is a nation that prides itself on diversity. 1/5 of Canadians were born outside the country. As our Prime Minister likes to say, diversity is Canada's strength. It's the air we breathe. Our nation has learned to be strong, not in spite of our differences, but because of them. When I refer to judicial diversity, I am speaking both about gender diversity, which ensures that more women are appointed to the bench, and individual diversity, which aims to capture the diversity that resides within various communities. We have also put greater emphasis on appointing bilingual judges who can best provide access to the courts in both of Canada's official languages, French and English. Our commitment to judicial diversity influences every judicial appointment we make and encourages us to appoint the best and most qualified candidates for a position, while considering their ability to reflect a segment of our diverse society. We believe that promoting and maintaining a diverse judicial bench allows us to come before the justice system to see individuals to see themselves in the system. The diversity of individuals appointed to the judiciary in both professional and life experiences, along with their ties to the community where they work, are critical to ensuring the judicial benches reflect and receive the respect of the communities they serve. And though such a process of promoting judicial diversity takes time, I am proud to say that in 2017, it marked a record high number of judicial appointments of any Minister of Justice in our nation's history. Of the more than 115 appointments and elevations I have made under the reformed process, more than half of those appointments are women. In addition, 4 are Indigenous, and 20 have self-identified as a member of a visible minority population of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered community, or as a person with a disability. I'm immensely proud of the candidates that I have appointed, all of whom represent the different faces and experiences of Canada. So I've discussed the vital roles of judicial independence and diversity, the roles and what they play in ensuring the success and efficacy of our nation's justice system. These two themes are almost important because they encourage both government and citizens to adhere to the rule of law. The term the rule of law is one that may mean many things to many different people. For us in Canada, the rule of law is the first principle of our Canadian constitutional framework, governing the provisions of the constitutional text and upholding the relationship between the written law and the political conventions of the Constitution. In particular, the fundamental principle of the rule of law is reflected in the legal protections outlined in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which recently celebrated its 35th anniversary of its implementation. In both my roles as Minister of Justice and the Attorney General, I am responsible for the adherence to the rule of law by ensuring that Canada's legislation meets the highest standards of equity and fairness, while also respecting the Constitution and the independence of the courts and the judicial process. Under the Canadian Constitution, there is a separation of powers between the judiciary, executive, and legislative branches of the government. For us, it is an important way of ensuring adherence to the rule of law. Just as judges must be impartial and independent, so too must public prosecutors, who determine whether and how to pursue criminal charges. Indeed, in 2006, Canada made reforms to its Federal Prosecution Service to reinforce its independence. The Public Prosecution Service was made independent of the Department of Justice, and a requirement was introduced that any instructions from the Attorney General to the Director of Public Prosecutions must be published in writing. Reforms such as these help ensure Canada's legal and judicial institutions remain ethical, responsive, and independent. As I've mentioned, as Canadians, we are proud of our institutions, but we recognize that there is always room for improvement. In closing, I'd like to emphasize how important it is for all of us to continue to dialogue among international partners. Our own respective justice systems will be strengthened by engaging with each other and sharing our unique perspectives and experiences. A worthwhile example of what this partnership means in practice can be captured by the work being carried out between the Honourable Mary T. Moreau, an experienced Canadian judge, and her Moroccan counterparts. Just last week, Chief Justice Moreau was in Rabat, where she conducted interviews and engaged in discussions about judicial ethics and training with various Moroccan partners, including sitting judges and members of Morocco's Supreme Judicial Council. It is these types of partnerships that I am referring when I say that we must continue to work together to promote further learning and connection within the international justice community. By building on our own processes and principles as they relate to judicial independence, diversity, and the rule of law, we are all contributing to a shared commitment to improving access to justice and maintaining order within our own borders and beyond. Gela Kasla, thank you. Merci beaucoup. Shukran.